Hey, party people! Welcome once again to the Party of One podcast, where the gaming table is always set for two. I am your host, as always, Jeff Stormer. This week, we are joined once again by Russell Collins for the next installment of our ongoing Project WINGSPAN campaign. We rejoin Klaus Winberg, retired army pilot turned cybernetic super soldier, as he attempts to maintain a balance between the war abroad and the war at home. It's a super fun episode that features some really cool tweaks to the Project WINGSPAN system, and I cannot wait for you to hear it. So let's go ahead and dive right in and throw it over to me in the past so he can get started with the show. Take it past me.
Thanks, future me. This week I'm sitting down once again with Russell Collins. Russell, thanks so much for coming on Party of One.
Oh, thanks. It's always great to be here.
So, previously on the Project WINGSPAN saga, Klaus Winberg was deployed in secret to the neighboring country of...
We sent him to Astoria.
Astoria, thank you. Sent to the neighboring country of Astoria in secret to disable the Project Behemoth, which was a massive building-sized weapons platform. It was horrifying. And then on the home front, Klaus had to settle. Tensions were rising between the Prior Paul and the People's.
Well, his council.
Right.
His Citizens Council.
Right. The Citizens Council, and what was the other organization?
They didn't really have a formal name yet.
Yeah, there's an angry mob forming about trying to take down the Citizens Council, and...
Well, sort of. There's basically two factions are forming up. Prior Paul Dumont, who has his Citizens Council, which are pushing a very loyalist agenda with a lot of, citizens tests and that kind of thing, and looking out for spies. But meanwhile, Emma Dubois has come into town with a group of protesters who are actually insisting on trying to find peaceful resolution now, rather than allowing bloodshed to continue. So Emma Dubois, I guess you could call her the peace movement if you need to.
The peace movement. And had formally come to a head with Klaus offering to moderate a debate between the two parties to hopefully bring some measure of peace to the town of Idle, and hopefully keep things from going any more topsy-turvy than they've already gone. It was just after he had spent some time studying and prepping for this debate that he was pulled aside and told that it was off to another exciting adventure in the life of the Rocket Man.
Yes. So let's pick up right there.
Sounds perfect.
Yeah. Commander Boza, as usual, drives you in the Jeep down towards the mini airfield where they hop you on a plane and fly you not that much further out to the scrapyard. From the direction you're going, you can tell it looks like they're aiming you back toward Astoria.
Okay.
Previous operations, like they take you a little bit east, which means you're heading towards the Eastern Front rather than south or west towards the Hansen Front. He doesn't have a lot to say to you on the ride, just keeps things terse and pleasant.
I think I exactly returned that. I don't think that we're exactly on the most social of terms at this point.
Not right now, no. It's actually very early in the morning when you arrive at the scrapyard. The technicians are there, of course, in their usual layout. They've got all their strange equipment heaped up on these collapsible tables. They've got the little, dressing tent set aside for you. They rush you through the pre-mission things, get you changed into the changing gown, hand you the injector. But as they're doing all this, they sort of part, and you see a woman wearing a general's uniform, sort of standing there in the midst of them. Like as they're all bustling around, she's standing stock still and just sort of staring at you through the whole process. As the last technician hands you the injector and starts to step back, she moves up behind him, taps him on the shoulder, and says, "Just a minute," and steps up to you. Yeah, she's got a full general's regalia on, and she's looks a little young for her, for that position as general. She gives you a nod.
I have to stop my eyebrow from cocking as I give the full salute. And I say, I guess always good to see a new face, I suppose. Guess.
She snaps the salute back to you, smiles and nods. Yes, I'm General Delaney. I'm going to be taking over command of this operation, so I thought it'd be best to sort of see the Rocket Man deployment in action for myself. Now, this is a name that you've heard sort of swirling around in the news. I mean, General Fontaine has been, the general prosecuting the defense of Morovia.
Sure.
But there's been some concern that Fontaine hasn't really been making headway. I mean, after Operation Backstab, you smashed into the city of Strasbourg, you sort of opened a hole in the line, but Fontaine didn't push that hard against it. He's been fighting a very defensive war, and this is getting some people back home upset. Now, the name of this Delaney came up because on the Hansen front, she made some serious headway by pushing through some valley passes and taking some kind of risky actions that did end up recovering land that they thought had been lost to the Hansen advance. So now it seems they've decided to apply her efforts to the Eastern Front.
Interesting. Well, it's exciting. I can't say Klaus is entirely excited about the prospect of fighting a more aggressive war, though I suppose if it gets us to some sort of peace agreement sooner, then I guess that's the price we have to pay. So he'll sort of nod and say, you're in for a show.
I hope so. Operation Hammerblow is meant to be the push that brings this war to its end. We've pulled reserves from all over Morovia. Even from your home area, I suppose. We pulled the Northern Infantry 8th out for this. And, well, things are left a little light on the Hansen front, so we're hoping you can bring this to a quick and decisive end. You see, Strasbourg recovered sufficiently that General Coleman has been able to root his troops in there. We need to push through, we need to smash that resistance, and we need to begin a real march toward the capital. I'm hoping you can be the tip of the spear and not be wasted in the way that Fontaine has used you up to this point.
Well, I will certainly do what I do. Quick and decisive have been calling cards of mine for some time now. I guess since I did this to me, and we'll do what we do best.
She gives you she gives you a little chuckle. She gives you a nod, and she turns and walks away. Her carriage is very aristocratic. I mean, that's part of the reason why people were nervous about her coming into this role. I mean, she is from an aristocratic family. It was one of those things where it's like, well, wait a minute, why is this rich girl becoming an officer in the army? Is this some kind of nepotism thing? Blah, blah, blah. But then, after the actual successes in pushing back the Hansens, she has risen through the ranks as being, someone who's willing to do what needs to be done to get things done. So, once she is back, safely out of range, she takes cover with the others behind the little, makeshift shelters.
Sure.
You hit your injector, and the machine wakes up. The tiny, little pieces of the machine fly out of you. They begin dismantling the rusted wrecks of old cars and the broken, chunks of machinery, begin tearing that stuff down into dust, carrying that sort of glittering cloud back towards you, and they begin shaping you into your weapon form. So what's your weapon form like on this deployment? We've seen some interesting things of late. Typically the Rocket Man has had more of a, you started out with more of an airplane construction. Last time things got more heavy weapons oriented. Then you transformed into something more sleek and Art Deco. What's the Rocket Man's form these days?
I think with this transformation, it sort of takes on a markedly. It's not as flashy. It's there's a little bit of, it's almost reading a sense of hesitation in Klaus's mind to make something very functional. There's some big clunky guns on the backs and the shoulder blades. It's still got the wings, but it's not as flashy as it was previously. It's more practical. It's more functional. Gotcha. It's sort of minimalist. It feels like it almost feels like it is holding itself back as he is holding himself back a little bit.
Okay, cool. All right, let's go ahead and pick out your upgrades. Your machine level is 4, so
yes.
Tick off 4 of those boxes for your upgrades. Remember, you can
tick off fit and focused.
Okay, good. That means you get to add a die to each of those.
And I'm going to tick off I'm going to take off strong and observant.
Okay, so you can add +2 to your die results when using those two skills. So you've got your sort of loadout together then. All right, you take off and fly out on your way to the Asturian front. So we're flying back towards Stylesborg, last place where you had your operation backstab. This Stylesborg, as you fly out, you hear sort of the rehash of what you've heard. General Coleman, the man responsible for, as the commander of Behemoth, has refused to give up the city.
Right.
He is, it's uncertain if he's trying to revamp Behemoth or if he's just trying to strip it for parts and leave before that. But that means that there's still a strong resistance in this space. But it's also still the best place for the Moravian advance to go through. So there are several missions involved in this Operation Hammerblow. Now, I'm changing the structure of this slightly because the idea is that in the past structure, I decided how many missions there were or whatever.
Sure.
I kind of like the idea of that relying a little more on you. So each mission is going to give you dice to roll at the end of the whole operation.
Okay.
And that'll sort of tell us how costly this battle was for the enemy and how much closer we are toward the end of the war.
Cool.
So
cool. I like that.
Yeah. So right now there are 3 missions involved in Operation Hammerblow. The first 2 are the only ones I'm going to tell you about right now.
Okay.
Because the Moravian soldiers are advancing through the town, and they need to be defended from the enemy forces doing that. It's just dawn now as you're starting to approach. Stylesborg was that heavily built up industrialized factory city type thing. Most of the smokestacks have stilled, of course, but there's still smoke bubbling up out of wreckage here and there. But a large part of the town is now just inert as all the people have fled. Well, and the buildings have been left as they stood. Let's see. Let's start with that first group. So the Moravian soldiers are marching into town in sort of combat formations. Moving forward as advancing lines. There are tanks and support rolling along and marching along on either side of these columns of troops. The air vehicles are flying in and doing bombing and strafing runs on some of the gun emplacements in the buildings. What's picked out to you as sort of the major challenges that are holding back this advance is there are still active weapons on the Behemoth weapon platform.
Sure.
Looks like they've tried to patch it back together a bit, so that towering shape still stands there in the middle of town, and some of the guns on it are still active, and they're shelling and launching missiles and so on down toward the Moravian soldiers as they come up. There are also some sniper nests along one of the main streets that have been harassing people and have stymied an approach there where they need to get close enough to tear down barricades. And then there's also one of the commanders has pointed out what he believes to be a flanking maneuver by mantis walkers, which are these very small single-person mechs that move very quickly.
So you said there were behemoth weapons, and there are snipers hunkered in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. Yeah. And one of the commanders reports that he sees some mantis walkers that he believes are on a flanking maneuver of the column. So these are the first 3 objectives thrown at you in the first mission of the operation. So what target would you like to choose, and how would you like to deal with it?
I think I have to take down Behemoth first. Mm-hmm. I think I didn't finish it off last time, and it's my primary objective this time.
Okay.
That thing cannot be allowed to stand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yep. Flying towards you can see that these are sort of makeshift repairs that have been made on the thing. Like guns from tanks have been hoisted up and welded into place on the side of it. They've reloaded the old missile racks. It's there's still signs of the damage. The one weapon platform that you sort of unhinged is still hanging, but this other platform has been sort of shored up, and troops are running around on it and loading the guns and all that sort of thing. So let's talk a little bit about one of the changes I've made to try and speed up combat.
All right.
Which is that buffs and debuffs are no longer separate rolls.
Okay.
It's added into the single roll. So if you're approaching this weapons platform, you're going to have to deal with the fact that it has 2 buffs.
Okay.
There's heavy armor plates that have been welded over the thing to try and shore it up.
Sure.
And there are anti-aircraft missiles that are perfect for shooting down something like you.
Sure.
So here's how the new buffs work. I have a challenge number, and instead of stealing dice out of your hand, which always is depressing for some reason, instead of stealing dice out of your hand, it increases the challenge number for, by a degree for each of these buffs. The first buff adds 3 to that challenge number. The second buff adds 2 to that challenge number. So this 2 buff thing gets 5 extra points added onto its challenge. Sure. The way that you contend with them, instead of having a separate action, to debuff, what you do is you sort of add on side skills to your action that you feel will counteract each of those. And those counteracting skills, you don't roll dice for them. They're sort of free to do. But they will subtract more power from your action. So you have to spend more time and energy if you don't want to try and just power through that high difficulty. But it's not going to require additional dice rolling and things like that. So how are you going to deal with this weapons platform? What's your approach?
I think that I think dealing with the missiles is not the best approach because, I'm not going to be able to I'm going to be able to shore up a good shot if they are, shooting me out of the sky. So I'm going to have to go low, go hot, and go through their armor plating. So I think what happens is, like I said, it's very stripped down. It's almost bodysuit-esque with a jetpack and wings on the back. But then as soon as I see the armor plating, the guns on the shoulder blades start reaching out a little bit and start widening, and pretty soon they are these big drills basically, and they start whirring really fast, and they start going red hot, and I'm just going to hit the thing head on and just try to drill through that armor plating, and try to scatter the people inside by way of punching through the armor plating.
All right. Well, so here's sort of the thing is, the way to do it is we sort of pick your primary skill, the dice you're going to be rolling, and then we can talk about what side skills you're adding on to debuff. Now, right now, the challenge is pretty severe. I've got 2 buffs on a thing with a challenge of a 7, so you're looking at a 12, which is tricky even for you with your upgrades and upgrades and upgrades.
Right.
It sounds like you want to try and find a way to counteract the heavy armor, and that's good because that'll knock it down by 2. We'll be back to a challenge rating of 10, which you've handled pretty well in the past, actually. So taking off that 1 buff might be enough to get you what you need from this situation. So let's figure out what your primary action skill is,
and then pick out some secondary skills.
Yeah,
I'm feeling I think the primary skill is probably strong.
Okay,
fit and strong, right? Because I'm just
powering through,
punching through it.
Yeah. So the primary skill is that. What skill are you using for your debuff? What are you adding on to this that lets you use that red hot drill power?
Probably, I could see it being intellectual. I could see it being intellectual. I think that would be if we were doing it because in terms of figuring out the sort of mechanics of building a drill that is hot enough to melt through reinforced metal, but not melt away.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So let's see. Now the requirement of the skill is that we sort of be able to work into the narration, but also that your skill level be at least the number of buffs that this thing has. Fortunately, all your skills are at least level 2 or higher, and you've got increases from your machine. So none of that's going to get in the way unless you have to deal with something that's a level 3 buff or whatever. Right. So you've got the skill for it. All right. So now it's time for us to see how hard you hit. Let's roll the dice, and you're going after that challenge of 10.
5 dice because I'm rolling my fit of 5. A 4 plus 1 for an upgrade.
And your high roll is a 6 plus 1 for a 7. Good.
That is 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
12. Oh, wow. So we could have done this even without the debuffs. All right.
I'm not playing around this time.
No, it's time to get this stuff done. All right. So, yeah, the drills heat up. You plunge headfirst towards this thing. Now, remember, 12 being above the, above the, it's not a pass result, it's a win result. So there's going to be a bit of overkill here.
I'm trying to decide if I could bump it down to 10. I've got 2 joy.
You could buy it down. That would sort of clear out all your joy for this, and it is the first objective of Mission 1. So,
I'm gonna do it because I think my secondary objective will definitely feed into my hope in terms of like keeping those soldiers safe as they advance. True. So I think for now I'm absolutely doing it. I'm taking that.
All right,
taking that pass, bumping it down. I'm making sure not to spiral things any further.
Okay. So at the last minute, you managed to avoid slicing through the ammo dump that they're basically loading into all of the guns, and instead you can steer towards another one of those linkages that held the platform up. You cut through that, just burn your way through it, melting a tunnel through all that armor plate. The platform lurches to one side and shakes, and all the troops start screaming and hurrying and trying to climb back up to get away from it as shells begin to tumble end over the side of it. Part of the gantry gives way, and the entire platform lurches again to one side, similar to what you did to the previous one. You put it off balance, so all the troops are scrambling to get away. So nothing like a reliable strategy. To work there again.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly. So let's talk about the cost for that action.
Yeah.
Because you rolled a 6. 6 is a basic power cost,
right?
And then you debuffed one of the buffs. So what that does is, instead of us having to make a separate roll or whatever, it just adds to that base. It's going to add 3 points to that cost. So rather than having you roll twice, and like one power thing, another power thing, we did that one roll. That's the 6 for your roll, plus 3 more for the energy it took for you to actually take the effort to debuff. So I'm going to mark that off, and your power is down 1. So we destroy the weapon platform with your fit and strength. Good. Okay. So that's the first objective down.
All right.
Yeah, and since you are protecting the lives of the troops, I think you get your 1 point of joy back for that.
Right.
So good. It's it's the thing you want to do. It's in your wheelhouse, protecting people, defending people, and so on. But now we still have to contend with the fact there is a sniper nest that is raining fire down on the troops who are trying to get up to the barricades.
Right.
They can't really get the tanks in there, unfortunately, because they're trying to go up the main street, which has been turned into this sort of zigzag of rubble and barricades and broken tanks. So these troops have to march in themselves to try and clear it out with their sapper charges. So this should be a little easier to deal with. It's a lower challenge. It does have 1 buff because these people are sharpshooters.
Sure.
So the challenge is a 6 plus the 3 for the buff there. So it's actually a challenge of 9 that should deal with these Asturian sharpshooter troops up in the windows and these cupolas overlooking the main street. What's your approach to dealing with them?
I think my approach to dealing with them is I've punched through the behemoth. I'm back in the air. I think the best thing to do is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm gonna charge, fly towards them, take their, bring their fire on me, and try to punch into the snipers' nests and take them out by hand. I'm getting these big Hellboy hands of doom hands back that I've grown in the past. And it's starting to get a little bit more flashy as I'm kind of in my element again, I'm attracting the fire specifically onto myself so that the soldiers aren't getting sniper fire rained on them. And I'm going to try and take them out basically by hand, hopefully not killing anyone unnecessarily in the process.
Well, it sounds like we're not really going for a debuff. We're just heading right in there dealing with the challenge 9, which is good because that will save us on powers, hopefully. So let's make the roll. We're we're going for
5 dice.
Yep, 5 dice.
Adding.
And 1 die for that. We're going to take the high roll. Oh, wow!
4 5s.
4 5.
So that's a total 5. That's an 8.
8, just from the 8 from the dice alone.
8 from the dice alone, which is a 9, 10, 14. It's a 14, so I probably didn't do the whole unnecessarily killing people thing. Because I probably can't pay that down to a 9.
Well, yeah. I think the best way to sort of explain what happens is, yes, you punch in through, one of the sniper nests, and you do draw all their fire, all their attention. Bullets are pinging off you. You just start smashing your way through, breaking things. A couple of troops start scattering back away from you, scrambling, pulling out pistols and taking shots that just sort of bounce off you, until finally you land one really strong punch against one of the walls, trying to sort of collapse in part of the roof, and more collapses than just that part of the roof.
Yep.
there. There's, this crack and rumble, and the air fills with smoke and debris, and chunks of plaster and concrete begin raining down around you, and so you have to fly away from this collapsing mess, and you realize that that entire facade of the building is shaking, and chunks of it are breaking loose and falling down into the street. And on the other side, the snipers have been distracted, so one of the tanks wheels around, takes a few shots, and that building as well just goes up, and the sides of it, break open and begin raining, their contents down into the street below. So that is a tick on the anger track, because overkill.
Yep. A little bit. Just a little bit of overkill.
Just a little bit of overkill. You are still trying to defend your troops, though, so I will let you get the joy for that. That's a win, so we get that. We tick that up there. But that does get rid of that second one. Now, the best part is your power cost for that was only 5.
Great.
You rolled a 5, and you rolled all those extra ones there. So let's see. This was Sniper Nest. Again, a strength fit type thingy. 41 minus 5. I can't do math. 36. Suddenly, can't do math. All right. Anyway, good. Now, as you fly out of there, the air around you suddenly lights up with little flak explosions and so on. It's time for us to talk about the second mission objective.
All right.
Apparently, the enemy are bringing in some relief units. There's a group of Hund marching tanks. Those are those 4-legged tanks.
Right.
Trooping in on a hillside. Sort of in the just outside the main center of the city, an area that probably at one time was a park, but has now been turned into all these ramps and runways and things. Those tanks are marching in and have begun aiming more specifically at you. They're firing flak guns up into the air. They are launching missiles and so on. And you see at the back of this group, there's a Blue Beetle command tank. That's a big one. That's like a 6-legger, 8-legged, thing that's trundling along. It's, covered in these gimbaled gun turrets and, so on and so forth. And then you quickly get a note crackling over your headphones telling you, that must be General Coleman's command tank. You can see his livery painted on the side of it. And it is indeed. This tank has been painted up with all kinds of rampant lion family crest type thing. Over the dull gray of your typical Asturian, weapon. It's all dull gray and black, and dull gray and silver. But here we have this sort of red lion painted on it, which shows that this commander takes great pride in his machinery. Now you think you remember Coleman from smashing through the front of the behemoth and assailing him with these supercharged sounds that chased everybody out, and he seemed to take a very particular interest in you. So now that interest continues.
Yes,
as he has his command tank and his other tanks flying, driving in to try and smash you down. So that's our second mission. There are 2 objectives to that. There's the Hund tanks, and then there's the command tank, the Beetle. But we still have to deal with the fact as well that there are also those Mantis walkers that are on a flanking maneuver. You can now see them from where you are, yes. They're looping around behind some side streets. They're these small, sprightly things. They're like a one-person walker vehicle, but they're also, they have really long, extending these sort of spring legs that let them leap over this rubble as they, go hopping around into these side streets and back alleys towards the side of the advancing Moravian column. So where do you think your attention belongs first?
I think the first place I need to take out the walk. If they're going to focus on me, then that's fine. But fine, at least as long as I'm in the air and as long as I'm dancing around, I don't necessarily have to worry about the tanks or the Beetle turning onto the soldiers. So I'm going to focus my efforts on the Mantis walkers for now because those will focus on the soldiers.
Yes.
If I take a few pot shots in the meantime, I can take a few pot shots in the meantime. That's not a huge problem. That's not a huge deal for me.
Okay. So yeah, you fly down towards those city streets. As you zoom over the Moravian forces, you can almost hear them cheering over the sounds of gunfire and explosions. You can see people looking up toward you as you fly overhead. And it is kind of a mix of Moravian soldiers. Like you can see the insignia of all these different units that have been pulled from all over. I mean, the ones from the southern units where they have like the wave symbols on their infantry badges and their flags, and then those from the north who have the trees and the mountains as emblems on their uniforms. That would be where Marta and Brahm have ended up in those groups of soldiers. But yeah, there's cheers and shouts as you fly overhead, heading into the side streets. Now, the Mantis Walkers, they're sort of painted in that same dull gray of the Asturian, troops standard thing. It is kind of like a capsule around a pilot with these long, spindly legs.
Right.
They have, they got, some buffs on them. They're able to leap over these distances, so it's very difficult to track them easily without getting in close. But then they also are sort of built for close combat in a way, in that they have these mechanical appendages of these sort of lashing blades that they're meant to use in anti-infantry actions. So they're a challenge 6. They've got those 2 buffs on them, which would make them more difficult if you're sort of going after them and trying to get in close to them. Staying back out of range is one way to sort of debuff those situations, or, just trying to power through with some other form of modification to your system. So their challenge is 6, and then with the 2 buffs on them, we're looking at an 11 challenge to deal with them.
I'm going to hang back. I'm going to, fly low. Fly low, making sure to sort of stay within the sight range of the tanks and the beetle, making sure that they have their guns pointed at me as I sort of take aim, and sort of the 2 drills sort of extend back out and turn into like sniper rifles, and from one of them a little viewfinder like bursts through and kind of positions itself directly over my right eye as I kind of like take aim, and the guns sort of find their target and then open fire.
Okay. Are you using a debuff for this, or are we just going to go for straight shooting at these things?
I think we'll go for a debuff of perhaps either intellectual or observant. I'll let you decide in terms of targeting, in terms of basically like upping my targeting capacity even beyond the machine's sort of inherent. The machine's inherent sort of like targeting computer. This secondary thing is it's a first-person shot where like we see that the targeting computer is not just showing where the Mantis Walker is, but it's showing like the 3 places it could jump, so it's like giving me a little bit of predictive.
Well, that's good because your observant is what is guiding your gunshots.
Right.
So this intellectual, by doing that, by trying to track their locations, we're bringing in another skill.
Yeah.
So that's good because then we can use intellectual as sort of that secondary skill. So our primary skill, our primary attack is going to be made from observant, but we're debuffing with help from intellectual. So yeah, okay. Let's roll for that. So your observant is based on your focus,
which is 5.
Yep.
And I've got +5 from observant. All right. That's a 6. That's 11.
11. Okay. Which let's see. What did I say it was? It was 11 without removing the buff. So
yes.
So with the buff removed, it's a 9. So there we go. We've got that. We've got that 9 difficulty there, and you've got that.
I'll bump down that joy again. I'll take those 2 joy and bump it down to a 9. Take that as a pass.
Okay, sure. We'll take that as a pass. The best way to deal with these Mantis things is you realize to sort of like track them in advance. You start leading the shots a long way. They start bounding around. Once you take the leg off the first one, it just sort of smacks into a building and then collapses down to the rubble. I mean, they're these spindly things. If you can knock off one of the limbs, you've basically immobilized them. The others notice that and start hopping around once they realize they've drawn your attention. But with some careful leading and some expert sniping, you're able to once again just knock a leg off one or smash open, the control capsule of another, and so on, so that they just end up collapsing one after the other into the side streets there. The pilot's struggling to get out after you've immobilized all of them. All right, so that's a pass. I don't get you a point of joy for a pass. Has to be a win, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I'll take the.
Yeah, we'll take the cost of it. I'll
take the cost. That's more because I'm already at 3 on my anger track.
That's true. One more anger track, and Morovia gets angry.
So I'm going to hang back as best I can.
Cool.
And take passes where I can.
Yep, so we had a 6 on that.
Yep.
And we had 1 debuff, so that adds 3 to it, which costs 9 for that action as well. So we're, okay. We're going along there. So we sniper shot out the mantises. All right. So we're still looking at the Hund and the Blue Beetle command tank. Those are still there. They're still focusing their attention on you, but if you're not there to draw fire, then they can do an awful lot of damage to the advancing column of Moravian troops. So, where's your attention going to go first?
Tanks first, then tanks first. Disable them. Take out, and then the beetles all mine.
Okay. The tanks, since you've already dealt with a heavy armor plating elsewhere, their heavy armor buff does nothing for them. You hadn't done anything to counteract missile defense, however, and they do also have missile ranks, so these missile racks, so these tanks are going to be firing their missiles at you. And they have started putting out smoke screen around them to try and make it harder to shoot them at range once they realized you turn into a sniper rifle and, a flying sniper rifle. So, those are the marching tanks you're having to deal with. They're a challenge of 7, and with those 2 buffs, that goes up to a 12. But since you've got all of these upgrades, I don't know, you're in pretty good shape to deal with these kinds of challenges. So it's up to you.
I think I'm just gonna... I'm rolling 5 dice, so the odds of not rolling a 6 are slim.
Yeah.
So I think I'm gonna go straight and see what happens. I think I'm just gonna go for it.
Go for it, yeah.
Because I feel like when I've been debuffing it, what's been happening is I've been winning. So if I go for it straight, at worst I have to keep firing, but at best I can get closer to a pass.
Okay, so we're firing through with the modified sniper rifles, which are now armor piercing, of course.
Right, of course,
because
now they're firing laser beams. Like now it's a full on they're now they sort of thicken and you see the veins of energy coming through them as I let loose just one big consistent slicing laser beam. So this is 5 dice. This is going to be +5 for observant.
Okay.
So I need to get a 7.
Challenge 7. Yeah, it's a challenge 7. It's a 12.
So I need to get 2 6s. So I think I am going to debuff one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll debuff. We'll take out a debuff.
Sure.
We'll take out a debuff. We'll take out the smoke screens. I think we'll take out the missile racks. As I think what I think happens is, I'm not 100% comfortable with the machine. So instinctively, my hands kind of come out to sort of frame the shot. I'm still kind of trying to do that. And as they do that, my fists sort of involuntarily close into fists. And then rockets form on the side, and I rocket fist out, and the missile and in such that they detract, they catch the attention of the missile of the heat-seeking missiles, because now there are these flaming missile fists flying around that they're going to dance around.
Sure. So you've effectively sort of put up some chaff for yourself with that. Okay. Which skill do you want to
call that intellectual? I think.
Yeah, I think you're probably right with that as well. Okay, good. So that'll be that. So we've debuffed 1, so now we're dealing with the 10 difficulty. Okay. Let's see what we get. I see 2 5s. Get
plus
you a 6.
5 is 11.
Okay, good. Which is good, because you would have needed that.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. The trick works. The missiles start going after the sort of heat source of those other rockets that you sent out.
Yep.
Leaving these tanks without their defensive measures other than the smoke screen, and you just sort of fire into the clouds of smoke. There are there are sparks and sizzling and explosions, and chunks of tank come rocketing out of those smoke clouds in bits and pieces as that laser beam carves this glowing red streak along the hillside there. That removes them. Now that's a win.
That is a win. That's going to put it up to 4 anger.
4 anger. We've tripped over the anger limit there. So now everybody in Moravia getting a little more bloodthirsty because, hey, look at our super weapon. Look what it can do. Look how it can take down an entire column of tanks at once.
Yep.
So, yeah. So there we are. Operation Hammerblow is looking good for General Delaney now, I gotta say.
Yeah.
So,
it's only gonna look better, unfortunately.
Yep. So, as that, as the smoke begins to die down from those, you focus your attention back over on the command tank. someone is standing on top of the thing. There's a guy in as you can look at him, like as soon as you're interested, the machine, focuses your vision, zooms in a little bit, cleans up the noise, and does all these weird things that you don't quite understand, just to make sure you can see what you think you want to see. It's that guy who you were, who you saw on the command deck of the Behemoth. It must be General Coleman.
General Coleman.
Yep, his head is bandaged, particularly over his ears. He's standing on top of the tank with his field glasses up, looking at you and pointing in your direction as all the guns on the back of the tanks swivel and try and track you, putting shots up in the air. And then he raises his hand in a fist and brings it down suddenly. And there is a rumble that goes through the entire foundations of the city. And the Behemoth, off now, a couple of blocks over in the distance, big metal plates of it just slide off and collapse into the plaza around it. I mean, these gigantic metal pieces just break off, collapse, and smash down into the streets, like, crushing the remains of tanks underneath them and all that. And gouts of fire and smoke come bubbling out of that. And you can see rising up on that column of smoke and flame are two huge missiles that begin to, rise up over the city. No idea what they're intending to do with those, but that does not look good.
It sure doesn't. So what do I want to do? Do I disable? I feel like if I disable, I can't disable the missiles while they're grounded, because if I do, then they might set off, and that's going to hurt a lot more people than it will save.
Yes. You quickly get the word from command that these are Hell's Mouth thermobaric warheads. They are highly explosive, they have, high-speed rocket engines, they are ballistically guided, and they are full of extremely flammable diesel concentrates. They're not yet sure where these things are intended to go. There are two of them, though, and they've begun to track off in slightly different angles as they go up. So now, Mission 3, the missile launch. So we still have the second mission dealing with the approaching tanks, which in this case now is really just Coleman's command tank.
Right.
But then we have these missiles launching from the remains of the Behemoth.
I am going to... I look for a long time at Coleman. I watch him for what feels like longer than should be for the mission, even if it is only a moment or two. And then I just kind of finger gun at him and fly off towards the missiles.
For a second, you almost feel like you've locked eyes with him. The way that he's looking at you, like his field glasses are down at his side, but the way that he's looking at you, and the gesture, there does seem like this sort of weird. Even though he can't really see that gesture, you can sort of feel that energy from him. That same sort of just enmity.
There's no actually it's not even a finger gun. It is it is a 2-finger casual I'll see you soon, officer, as I fly off towards the missiles.
Okay,
just enough, just casual enough that it's disrespectful.
Gotcha. So the thermobaric warheads seem, from which you can quickly track, to be heading toward the rear of the advancing Moravian column. This is a column of troops that is, a couple miles long. And these warheads are, they're going to land outside the city, but this is where, this other group of people are coming in. It's interesting. I mean, command is kind of scrambling, trying to figure out why they did this now. What, if they'd had these weapons, why didn't they use them before? What's this about? And then you hear the voice of General Delaney shouting down over the text, "Isn't it obvious? Coleman has made this personal. Rocket Man, this is about you. You've got to do this."
Understood.
Okay.
I think I was on my way to take them out before even hearing that, and when I hear it, I was on my way, and when I hear that, I don't sort of hop to it. I kind of hit the 2 fingers to the bridge of the nose, of course. And I fly, and what I'm going to do is try and grab one of the missiles and basically, manually, push it towards the other one.
Okay. So the missile has a challenge of 8.
Okay.
It's a big, dangerous, difficult thing. It has 2 buffs on it. They are highly explosive, very volatile. And they have high-speed rocket engines. So catching up with this thing is effort enough. So it sounds like what you're really trying to do is you're trying to get close and with a sort of a feat of strength, grab hold of it and move it. Is there a debuff you want to try to put on that? Because right now you're looking at a challenge of 13.
There are 2, actually.
Yes.
I want to use... I would like to use Observant to sort of, like, figure out, like, kind of like where I can, like, drag this... like piece together where on the projected flight path I can kind of like smash these 2 things together to sort of like catch up to it.
Okay.
Or sort of like Observant to figure out its flight path so I can kind of like cut it off and come up ahead of it. And then Deft to basically execute that, right?
Okay.
So it's like I'm not eyeing again, it's a lot like the targeting computer. I'm not going where it is. I'm going to come up where it will be. Yeah. Okay. So I can grab it and sort of redirect it. When it gets there.
I'm going to add a little more to this, because since there are 2 missiles, I'm going to say these are 2 separate objectives.
Sure.
So it's going to take 2 rolls to get this done, but this will get you on that first missile. This will get your plan started.
Sure.
The execution is going to require another one. Let's make that roll.
Sure. Sure.
Strength.
So 5 fit, 4 5 fit, 6 strong, 6 strong. 5, 6, 7, 13.
A 13, which is right on where you need to be if you weren't doing the 2 debuffs.
Yep.
But that's okay.
Yep.
All right. So, so this is a bit of overkill as well, which I will sort of hold on to until after you've completely executed the objective. But just know that this thing is going to explode. It is going to cause big damage wherever it crashes. And that's kind of the question, is where does it crash? But yes, you pour on the afterburners. You reach forward and actually lay your hands on the missile. It's this, it's a silo basically in front of you. But you grab onto with those huge, mechanical hands that start to dig into the metal. And your engines are already trying to work into even faster and full blast, trying to steer the thing away. The machine is doing all kinds of weird calculations in your head. You remember having to try and an eyeball landings and that sort of thing. Working with your on and off the gauges in your plane. But whatever the machine is doing, it's far more advanced than that. There's some kind of much more advanced math going on in it, trying to figure out exactly where this thing is going to go and how it's going to go there. And then the missile starts to pull against you. It starts to fight back because it has ballistic guidance on it as well. So let's see. The roll on that was a 5, and you removed 2 buffs. Removing the first buff adds 3 to the cost. That would be 8. Removing a second buff adds 2 to the cost. So that means the total is 10 for that. So that's to grab missile 1. All right. So we got the missile. We're struggling to keep control of it. The second one is peeling off, heading towards the rear of the Moravian column, where the supply vehicles are, where all of the reserves are mustering and keeping up the march. What are we going to do?
I am going to just try and fly there as fast. So I've got these big guns, right? They kind of peel backwards, and suddenly, for a moment, I'm kind of weighed back again, and then suddenly, boom, and I feel these 2 giant jet engines, and I'm like, oh, that's what's happening, and I just sort of pushing as hard as I can against it. I'm going to jet to try and catch up to catch the other one with the first missile, such that it doesn't explode, and do it soon enough that it's high enough that the diesel should burn up before it hits the ground.
Okay. So the challenge for this one, because you've already dealt with the buffs of being highly explosive and having rocket engines, the only thing you're fighting against is the ballistic guidance.
Okay.
So the challenge is actually 11 now.
Okay.
This is to catch up to the second missile. You've already got your afterburners going and all that sort of thing. So yeah, let's make that roll. It sounds like we're kind of going for the same again.
Okay. Yeah.
So let's do it.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is 2 6s. That is a 12.
12. Okay. Well, that's good. That'll get you a win.
Yep.
Yeah. But we already said this thing's gonna go up big.
Yep.
So I'm gonna let you describe what happens here. You know that things go up big. You know stuff gets wrecked in the process. But you did complete the emissions. So
and I'm gonna argue that I got a point of joy out of that.
I think so. You saved the lives of some people by a massive explosion.
It happens. What it is it is described for generations as the second star of midday is what it is, what it becomes known as, because they're straight up like for a brief second. I'm picturing this in like late evening, and for a minute or so, it's like noon. There's just a full on like sunburst in the sky as like this thing goes off, and then it's like it burns, and it's just burning hot light for a minute or so, and then it slowly dissipates, and people see this for miles. Like miles upon miles of people seeing this explosion.
Oh yeah. I mean, everything gets quiet. Everything, just like all of the gunfire ceases, all of the explosions stop. I mean, the troops who are advancing just sort of everybody just freezes where they are. They flatten down onto the ground, and it was this sort of like gust of wind. And then because it's a thermobaric weapon, it's like a huge wave of heat, and then there's a backwash of that as the heat gives way to the cold air. The clouds overhead begin to mushroom from this explosion. And everything on the battlefield just stops for a time. You feel it's got to be like a full 30 seconds. Yep. Everything just stops and waits as you tumble out of this blazing inferno in the sky. The machine is screaming at you crazily, and the energy released from this is like overloading you somehow. But at the same time, the machine is kind of feeding on the chaos of it, so that as you sort of emerge from the whole thing, like scorched and blackened, like the metal melting off you, but immediately like reforming back into shape, so that you're kind of in this sort of weird like flux, like shimmering state as you cool back down to your normal operating temperature.
Yeah.
So that's that mission dealt with.
And
big explosions.
Big explosion. Very big explosion.
You have some power left in your batteries. You've got 6 power left. And the only objective left to you is the command tank with General Coleman standing there. From where he is, like just glancing in his direction, the machine shows you how his mouth is just hanging open, his arms are hanging limply at his sides. His command crew are trying, are desperately, like one of them is desperately tugging on his sleeve, trying to get him to climb back down into the tank. They're trying to bring the guns about, move the thing a little bit, because without the pressure from elsewhere, Moravian forces are starting to roll up that hill toward him.
I think what happens is there's that moment, like that 30 seconds where I'm just sort of falling, and everything is just sort of like still. And it's sort of like time doesn't feel like time anymore. And then suddenly I'm clear, and I'm already flying towards not the tank, not the Beetle, but General Coleman. I'm flying to grab him specifically because if he wants to make this personal, I am making this personal, but also the machine is making this entirely personal.
Okay. Well, let's see. The challenge of dealing with this objective of the command tanks, the challenge of 7. You've already dealt with a lot of the things that this tank had at its advantage. Heavy armor and missiles are no longer a hindrance to you. The only things that it really has going for it now are the smoke screen that it's still trying to put out. Previously you just sort of blasted through that instead of actually trying to contend with it. And the fact that Coleman is their commanding officer. So it has 2 buffs on its challenge of 7, making you deal with a challenge of 12, which you have pretty handily done in the past. So, any debuffs, or you're just gonna go for it and grab this guy off the tank?
I think I'm just gonna go for it and grab him off the tank.
Okay.
I think that's what I'm gonna do. 5, 6. It is an 11, 12.
12.
Pass.
Perfect.
I spend my last point of joy to just grab him perfectly. I think it is, so if I may describe this.
Oh, please.
I think it's that they're tugging on him, and and it's just the smoke screen, and then, like, the smoke, they don't even see the Rocket Man, right? They see a plume of smoke, and then the person tugging on it is just tugging on, like a torn shred of fabric. As I've got him initially by the throat, and I have to, like, convince the machine, like, don't do this. Don't do this. And then I, like, kind of, like, put him maybe, like, into sort of more, like, maybe, I know what happens. Oh, this is creepy and weird. It, like, I'm holding him kind of, I'm holding him, and my arms sort of, like, form a shell. Like, it sort of forms a shell out of my chest, sort of forms a compartment, and it sort of is just, like, caging him. Like, there's just a cage that forms that holds him as I fly off into the night.
Okay. Coleman, at first when you pick him up, he starts to choke out that same word you remember hearing him say once before when he saw you. Something about, demon, and then some other words that you haven't ever really understood in Asturian. And then, you fold that cage around him and wheel back around toward your forces on the battlefield. The tank crew, as you spin back around, are climbing out of the tank with their hands in the air as some Moravian troops rush up the hill toward them. You've still got 1 point of power left, so that worked out pretty well there with that 5. Grab Coleman. Good. So, your missions have been accomplished.
Yeah, I think with Coleman gone, I'm going to call it and head back.
Okay, good. You can deposit him with command, or or whatever. Or just,
I think that's exactly what I do. I just kind of like drop him off with command. Like I drop him off with command, and then just depart.
Okay, yeah. You take off and start flying back to the scrapyard, where the technicians are waiting for you, and also waiting for you is General Delaney. After you land and you begin to dismantle your weapons, and the techs rush in, get you fitted back in your clothes, get you all like dusted off and cleaned up and all that sort of thing. They do their little quick medical check to make sure everything's okay and make sure the machine is properly asleep and all that. Then she walks up to you, big smile on her face. A few more of you and this war would have been over in a week.
Yes, well, I'm quite a weapon.
That you are. The pride of the Moravian forces. Well, you go and rest up. I'm sure we'll need you again. Operation Hammerblow is a long-term commitment to the victory of Moravia.
Of course it is. Noted.
Dismissed.
Thank you.
And she wheels and heads back. Berza comes up, to you. He's heard all the stuff over the radio, but hasn't seen any of it. And he also seems to have taken on sort of there's a weird sort of reverence as he, leads you to the car and starts to drive you back towards town in a way. I mean, this explosion thing, by the time you get home already, there, that's in the newspapers. That's already being talked about over the transistor.
Sure.
The radio and the video phones are already people just chattering about like what this this happened, this huge thing. And then by late afternoon, broadcasts and so on are already going out from General Delaney about how this Operation Hammerblow is a success. We are moving into Asturian terrain. They will learn that that they cannot expect Moravia to reach an armistice until we have dealt back to them whatever pain they have caused our people. And so you're back in town, and it's time to try and get back to normal a little bit. So,
I've got a debate to go to.
Yeah, you've got a debate to go to. So let's do a bit of a battlefield wrap up because the anger ticked up a bit. We are at level 4. There's 1 mark under it. From previous times, despair is still only at 1, but I do remember that I had ticked the mark underneath it, so that didn't go over. No battlefield losses.
Right.
Everybody in Moravia is still confident and assured and getting pretty bloodthirsty, actually, because they're winning, and they're winning big.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot more aggression out there.
Yep.
But now let's talk about that thing I was saying about missions and objectives. So you completed one mission. You completed one mission with 3 objectives.
Yep.
And then 2 more with 2 each. So pick up 3 dice for your first mission.
All right.
Roll them, and let's find the high number, as we always do.
5.
5. So that's going to cost 5. And roll 2 of them for this other objective.
6.
6. And then roll 2 dice again for the third objective.
6.
Another 6. Wow, okay. So you cost the enemy quite a bit of their weapons and material. So what I've been doing to try and track the overarching war is I've got a stat now called reserve. And that's how much resource and energy the enemy forces have to start throwing against you. And each time you complete one of these missions, you get to roll some dice to see, oh, how costly was it for them? So this Operation Hammerblow was 17 out of their total reserve. Now, the number right now is secret because I haven't been doing this in the previous missions, so I'm still trying to work out exactly the math on it. But that's great. Yeah. So you have with this, you've done some decisive damage to their their infrastructure, their ability to continue the war. And once that reserves run down, we reach the end game. And it's time to figure out, what happens at the armistice.
Right.
What happens after the war? Where do you go from there? But we're getting closer to that. So soon. All right. Should we start talking about what happens in town?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. I'm going to put some time on the war clock for our various actions. Anger is 4 with 1 check, and despair is 1 with the 1 check. So let's, where did we leave off? There were a lot of fun things going on around town.
We were just about to start off a debate between the peace movement
of Emma Dubois.
Emma Dubois and Prior Paul Dumont's Citizens Council.
Yes.
I was going to be moderating this as a supposedly impartial party.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody with a vested interest in both the Citizens Council and also the Citizens Council disbanding, because my friend Gene, he'd be better off without the Citizens Council poking around. So,
yes. All right. So, people are very riled at this event already.
Sure.
Like, people are already getting kind of hot-headed, and there's already some grumbling in the crowd, and they've already been, they've already had to have the town constable has already had to break up one small fist fight outside before things even get started, and they threatened that they're going to cancel this whole thing if people can't calm themselves down and engage in the proper spirit of this event, which is to let everyone hear everyone air their views and let people make decisions for themselves about what all this means and all that sort of thing. So Prayer Paul and Emma are on sort of opposite sides of the town hall. Prayer Paul is, of course, put on his old, veteran's uniform, shined it all up and all that kind of thing. Emma, she's actually, I don't remember ever describing her. She's kind of a young activist kid.
Sure.
So she's dressed in a more modern fashion, meaning the stuff that she's, her outfit is a little more unisex, so to speak.
Sure.
She does.
Sure.
She looks a little more like a city kid, sort of playing at being one of the people from the farming communities, and that her stuff is cut more like a workman's clothes, but obviously made of nicer fabrics and that sort of thing. So, she's got a defiant air about her, sort of like someone who's trying to distance herself from what might have been a more urban look. About her,
Yeah.
Hey, she's come out here into the boondocks to try and drum up attention for her movement. So, but the two of them, each take up their opposing points and begin their speeches. Accompanied by crowds cheering and booing and a lot of stuff in between the back and forth.
Right.
The upshot of all this is that Emma supports a program to help neighboring countries with their economic disparities. She insists the whole reason why this war began is because of problems of the people of Hansa as their economy crumbled, looking at the borders as their only way to bring themselves back from the brink of a total financial collapse. And the Desturia, similarly, is suffering from failing crops and so on. And it's no wonder that Morovia, being, the fat and happy country sort of sitting at the center of all of this, would be their target. In fact, she brings up the fact that the mountain ranges to the west were originally Hansan land and were sort of taken as part of the treaty agreements after the last Great War, forcing formerly Hansan people to suddenly start speaking Moravian and start living like citizens of a country that they were at war with not very long ago. Paul, however, stands up and insists that Moravia won its place through industry and, when necessary, warfare. They don't owe anything to these other countries. We are the best because of our achievements and our accomplishments. It's all well and good to talk about the idea of sharing across this nation, across the national borders to try and support one another. But there's always going to be a winner. There's always going to be a loser. And Moravia has been that winner, and as such deserves its place in the world. So that's kind of what's been laid out to you. Now, what's your goal as moderator? Because I can tell you a couple of possible things that could be affected by this are that since you're back in town, your outcome here, if you win, you have the option to try and reduce some of the anger or reduce some of the despair, to try and do a little bit to temper the mood around here.
I think that's my number one priority, is to reduce, especially reducing the anger. I'm not so worried about the despair. We're doing all right, but tempering the anger, dialing back the sort of the hunger for bloodshed, dialing back that bloodthirst. Yeah, feels like it needs to be done sooner than later. So I think as moderator, I'm hoping to take emphasize that all these viewpoints. There's validity here, but most importantly, the common thread is that of a community, is that of friendship, and sort of emphasize, play the role of the kindly peacekeeper, and sort of ensure that no parties lose sight of all of that, right?
Okay. Well, it sounds to me like we're sort of shifting away from anger, and Paul being the avatar of anger in town.
Sure, yeah,
he's probably the guy. So let's talk about sort of the challenge of trying to, in a way, turn his argument to be the least acceptable one. I think this, in your case, is going to involve probably being more convincing.
Yes,
to deal with Prayer Paul. His challenge for this situation is, well, he is typically a 6. Your tolerance for anger is a 2.
Right.
And the world's tolerance for anger is a 4. So people are generally more upset and angry than you are comfortable to deal with. So his normally 6 challenge is actually an 8.
Okay.
Because of, him being empowered by the world of anger and outrage.
Right.
And so on. So we're dealing with a challenge of 8 for your convince action. Boy, those numbers do look a lot smaller once you don't have a giant machine turning you into the engine of power and
they sure do. And I used a whole lot of joy to make sure that things didn't get worse.
Yeah.
So
let's see. What are we contending? We've got 2 dice.
Two dice
charming
plus 3. So I just have to roll 5.
That's true. If you can roll the 5, you can make it.
All right, let's see what we got.
All right.
Did not roll the 5.
4. Okay. All right then. Well, you talk about the idea of this more like coming to a better understanding and not letting people get torn apart or away from each other. Keeping it all together, not letting this sort of thing divide us. And it seems like you are sort of winning favor really with Emma's side. They more agree with this attitude. They're very, they're sort of falling in line with that idea and all that. But then Paul sort of shoots back at you. He sort of makes it personal. Klaus, you are a soldier. You understand the one great truth of this whole thing. Peace does not end war. War ends war. Peace just fills in the space that's left behind. The war will continue until warlike people are done with it. Then it will be time for peaceful people to decide. So, take comfort in the fact that the future is yours, but the day belongs to me. And with that, the debate ends. There's still a lot of grumbling, a lot of complaining among people about things. We'll sort of see how that plays out in the near future. But the general feeling is that more people are on Paul's side coming out of this than on Emma's. And so there's some concern already that she and her followers are looking antsy. She, breezes past you. Well, thank you for trying, soldier. I suppose there's only so much you can do with where you came from and what you are.
Yeah, I suppose can't help what I am.
Okay, so, let's see, you rolled a 4. Yep. So we'll tick some time off the clock. And this was the debate, which unfortunately was a loss for you.
Right.
So you took a point of pain
Yes.
from that loss. Doesn't affect the town at large. This is just you and your personal issues right now. But also because it wasn't a win, we aren't able to tweak the anger and despair with that action. Maybe with a future action we'll be able to make some adjustments. All right, so...
First thing I want to do now that I'm back is... So that didn't go great. And I know that... I know the things I'm good at, and talking isn't one of them, and I need to be better at talking if I am going to fix this.
Okay.
So I'm going to train my charming up that last little bit. I trained it up to two ticks on 2 last time. So so if I train it, it's going to go up to a 3.
Right. Yep. Train it up there. It'll go to a 3. Good.
Put that up to a 3.
Okay.
And now I roll my 2 dice. 3 dice.
3 dice. Yep, 3 dice for a talent upgrade.
4.
4, so it costs you 4 time
Yes.
in order to do that. So, all right. So tell me, what else do you do to try and improve your charming abilities? I mean, in the past, this has involved, you helped prepare Paul with, debate prep, and other times you just did a lot more to, be friendly and outgoing with people. What things do you do around town for a while?
I think the answer to that is nothing. I think I spend about 2 days in front of a mirror, talking to myself, because I'm embarrassed that I wasn't able to sell myself and sell my story and sell my perspective. So I feel that machine, right? I feel it in my gut, and I am not operating at 100% efficiency. What am I talking? Why am I talking like that? It doesn't matter. I'm not operating at 100% efficiency. I need to be operating at 100% efficiency. And I spend about 2 days in front of a mirror just telling stories, and then periodically being that was garbage. What am I doing? That was garbage. And then telling the whole monologue, the whole thing over again until I get to a point where I'm like, it'll do. It'll do.
Okay. Good. So once you've sort of finished your little self-imposed exile, it's time to get back to work. Nilla is still nervously, every time you see her, she still looks less and less like she's got any energy left in her. It's fairly obvious that sleep is only a fitful thing for her, as she's worried more and more about what the economy of the war is doing to her company, to the winery, to the business. I mean, so as you go in and out of the warehouse, she's always there shuffling the books back and forth, trying to figure out where she can borrow money, how she can shuffle stock around and all that kind of thing to try and keep her business afloat. I mean, wine is kind of a luxury item. People are certainly happy to have it, but when they can't export it or safely out of the country, then that's an awful lot of business that is just gone.
Right.
And of course, she has to provide rationing for the soldiers, which required for military events.
Yeah,
that stuff. That's So she's scrambling to try and deal with that. After one of your shifts, I think you should probably go and pay Hannah a visit.
Yeah, I think take her out to dinner. It's been a while.
Sure,
I've not been the most reliable, so I'm going to take her out to dinner. I'm going to take her out to dinner. If there's any wine available for purchase, I'm going to purchase a little wine. We're going to do it up real nice.
Sure. Well, you're on your way to take her out, for your date. You've already made arrangements to do so. And when you get there, you see that she's sitting at the kitchen table. She immediately apologizes. I'm sorry, I'm not ready to go yet. I'm trying to sort this whole thing out. And she gestures to the kitchen table, which is just a heap of packing paper and string and little bits of wood and cardboard and this one lone record platter just sitting in the middle of this whole mess. Marta wanted to listen to some of her old music. Apparently they've got a gramophone in her unit now, but all anybody wants to play is this transistor stuff. She doesn't like the sound of it, so she wanted me to send her one of her old albums of the folk songs. I don't even know where she is now. I mean, how can I pack it so I know it won't break on the way there? And you can see she gestures to like piles of torn paper.
And I stop her,
rewrapped.
I stop her right there and I say, like, go, get ready for dinner. And when you come back, this will be packed, tied, ready to ship. This is what I do. This is kind of what I do for a living. Working in a packing house. It would be my absolute pleasure, as long as it meant that we got to spend the evening together.
All right. Good. So, this is interesting because this is a chance for you to sort of do this by being deft and handy in order to win her over. Now, the challenge for this is, because it's her, she's a challenge 5, because she's kind of a ordinary type person. It is up a little bit, though, because of the anger in the air and all that sort of thing. So this is a 7.
Right.
Because, screwing up on this is really going to harm her mood. Because she's, everyone's on edge. Everybody's agitated. That's what the anger means. But, so you're dealing with a 7, and you've got your fit 4 dice.
Yep, 4 dice.
Deft of 2. Yeah.
Deft of 2.
Let's do it up.
All right, I got a 5. That's a 6. That's an 8.
8. Okay, excellent. Yep.
And that is involving Hannah. So that's 2 joy.
That's 2 joy you get there, and you can also deepen the bond with her because this is a good scene. So your bond with Hannah hits 3, which is the maximum.
And I might argue for another point of joy for my drive.
Your drive.
If I am like hopping to it, hopping to it.
It's true. I'll allow it. Yeah, I'll give you the 3. I mean, I probably should give you the 3 anyway because the bond increased.
All right.
So your bond with her. So that's 3 joy from that. That is a win.
Yep.
So things are neatly packed up when
she comes back down, and there's just a package, and so the paper, all of the crumpled up packing paper is gone, and the box has been like perfectly stuffed with it, and like in such a way that like I shake it a lot, and being who I am, I'd probably shake it a little too. Like, I don't anticipate my strength at first, but it's just silent. I'm like, look, there is no movement on this record, and I like squeeze it again, probably a little hard.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
her eyes widen for a second. Yep,
and I'm like, look, it's dense, but it's packed quietly.
Okay. She gives you a big hug. Says, "Thank you so much. It means so much to me that you can help me with these things. So let's go. Let's have our dinner. It'll be nice to get away from things, and I'll drop that in the post tomorrow morning, and Marta can have her record." All right, so that's 6. We are chipping away, and this was the record packing. And your bond has deepened with Hannah, so your relationship is even closer now. Where that goes is kind of up to you and her. But you've got a very committed bond with her now. She relies on you a lot for things like this. She has a great sense of closeness with you that you don't really have with other people, especially not these days. Yeah, which is nice. Yeah. Let's see. So
it makes me feel human almost.
Yeah, almost. So we're at 16 on the clock now. All right. Do you have any other actions you would like to pursue, or you want me to throw some other
I would love to check in after hours with Jean, after dinner, after dinner drinks, romance. I'd love to stop in with Jean. Make sure that everything is quiet on that front. Do anything I can to move any boxes or keep things on the down low.
Yep. You're not actually able to run into him that evening.
Okay.
People keep saying he's out. There's a neighbor who's looking in on Maria. Did I say Maria? Is Maria her name, or is it Mary? I forget.
I think it's Maria.
My note's Maria, yes.
Yeah.
There's a neighbor looking in on Maria, says that Jean had to go out of town for a couple of days. Don't really know why, but there's people covering his shifts and all that sort of thing. It kind of surprises you because you'd figure he would tell you something like that.
Yeah.
But, all right, fine. But a couple of days later, you are able to track him down, and he doesn't look well.
Mm-hmm.
You catch up with him at work, where he's filling out ledgers and logs and talking about boxes being moved around. He when he sees you, he gives you a nervous look and says, "Klaus, why don't we have a drink?" And he pulls out.
I would love to.
Pulls out 2 mugs and some coffee. Begins pouring. Yeah. Now he has actual coffee, which is a little bit showy right now.
Okay.
Most people have started to move to tea or ersatz coffee or whatever because it's getting harder to find that in supply. They don't really grow that here in Morovia. So it might be a little flash of him to do it, but that might mean he's asking for a favor next.
Sure, that's fine.
Yep. So he steps back into his little office nook with you, and he shuts the door. Klaus, I want to thank you so much for the help you've given me with all this, keeping things together and managed and all that. And it really pains me to have to ask you to do more. But I've kept things quiet. I've kept up my end. I've kept things organized. I've done what I need to do, but some of the people I'm dealing with are not as above board, I guess you would say. They're in trouble.
Okay.
The people who I hand off the packages to and who pay me, some of them got caught. And they gave me a warning it might ripple back to me. There are investigations. There's this citizens council that has expanded. I mean, the one here. It's still going strong. I mean, a few days ago they made that Dubois woman leave. Well, they're looking into it more, and the trail is heading back toward me. I think I may need to leave for a while, or something, until it quiets down. But Maria can't travel.
Of course.
She's not fit to travel.
Tell me what you need, and I'll make it happen to the best of my ability.
I'm going to need to travel out of town for a few weeks. I've already ginned up some excuses as a cousin of mine in the southern regiment who was injured. His parents are sick. I can say that I need to go and help him. I've already sent a letter and heard back through a transistor broadcast, and I need you to help me find someone to take care of Maria.
Okay.
While I'm away. I can't keep asking Florence, he gestures in the vague direction of his neighbor's house,
sure.
to do that sort of thing. Not for, what could be a couple weeks.
Sure.
Do you think you can find someone?
I guarantee it.
I mean,
you have my word.
And,
let me say, you don't have my word. Because I want to emphasize, I want to make something clear, Gene.
Mm-hmm.
I like you. But this has never been about you.
Right.
This has been about the town. And now, you don't have my word. Maria has my word. I will make sure she is taken care of. You go lay low. And she will be taken care of.
Thank you. It really means a lot for me to have someone like you around, Klaus. I mean, you've just been great to everybody here. All the good that you've done for people, and just
it doesn't feel that way sometimes, but I appreciate hearing it.
Thank you again. I'm going to do some packing and so on. I'll be heading out tomorrow evening. You can maybe come by and help see me off. I know Maria's going to be upset, but So I think she would appreciate you being there too.
I can make that happen.
Thank you again. Well, drink your coffee.
I drink it, and it is bitter, and it is rich, and it is unlike anything I have had for a while. And it tastes real in a way that not many things have tasted real in a long time.
Yes, that's true. I don't think we really brought a challenge into that, so I think there's a challenge that's going to roll out of that situation. Okay. I think we just did a little setup there, so that's okay by me. Do we want to hop into the situation that follows?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so will you tell me, how are you going to ask Hannah to help take care of Maria?
Absolutely.
Oh, I think that's probably a good idea. Her
that's
daughter
probably
being
the best
away.
idea. Yeah.
But this might be good for her. Yep. Okay. So, do you want Hannah to move into Jean's place to take care of Maria, or do you want to suggest moving Maria up to Hannah's house? About roughly the same kind of place. I mean, they live in the village, so they're quaint little houses, small but comfortable.
I think I'll ask her what she would like to do, but tell her that I think I come in, I bring breakfast, I bring croissants, I bring that blueberry croissant that she absolutely loves, and I sit down and I tell her, this is a lot. This is a big ask.
Oh.
And I wouldn't ask it if I didn't feel comfortable asking it. But, I am good friends with Gene Wassler.
Yes, he works at the winery with
Yes. He's a good man. He's a good man. And his daughter Maria is ill.
She has been for a long time.
Yes. And unfortunately, he has to go out of town to visit his cousin in one of the southern regiments. Some difficulties. It's a lot to get into.
Bring her here.
Okay, we can bring her for a few weeks. If you could help out, that would be ideal.
Of course, that's no trouble at all.
Okay, wonderful.
It'll be nice to have, someone else around the house again,
Wonderful.
I like our privacy, but still, it's kind of a shame Marta's room just sort of sitting there empty like that down there.
Yes, I thought that you might appreciate the opportunity. And there's, frankly, no one, I think, better suited to take care of someone than you.
It's really lovely to hear you say that, Klaus. Yes, tell him that she can come here. I'll set things up for her.
Wonderful.
So soon enough, the arrangements are made. Marta's room has been, a little corner has been cleared out of the way, and Jean has brought Maria up there with her. She's settling in. Jean gives you all these packages of things for her, and then he kind of slyly slips you, some fancy food, some foreign delicacies, and also a big satchel of her medicine that she needs. Tells you how many, the dosage she needs to make sure, if she starts coughing really badly, give her, a few drops of this, all that sort of thing, so that so you've got the rundown with that. And then he heads back to town to pack up and head out on his way. Asks you to just walk him down, to the house so he can say some final things on the way about what you should do. And then when you arrive at his house, you see Prayer Paul and a couple of other townsfolk are standing outside in front of the house. Paul is sort of puffed up, he's doing that thing again where he wears his old military uniform as if he's supposed to be, on duty in it, which, man's long retired, but still. Wassler, so I hear you're heading out of town for a time. It's kind of a concern of mine, I think, when people need to sort of drop off the map, These are difficult times, wartime, for people to just sort of leave their duties and their jobs and to deposit their children with other people. What's so much more important than staying here and preserving your home in idle? And Jean is, I've got a sick, cousin, and their son was injured and all that. Yes, of course. And those are people who'll be taken care of by the proper insurances of Morovia. I still don't see why you have to leave. Unless there's something else going on, There are always rumors of people who light in and out in the middle of the night from their homes. I mean, I'm sure there's nothing untoward if anyone were to say, go through your baggage, and he gestures towards a steamer trunk or something. They wouldn't find anything illicit, no black market goods or anything like that. Gene is like, is just sort of like fading.
Sure.
Trying to to hold himself up. That's despicable and disgusting. You can't do that sort of thing. It's a violation of our... Is it a violation, really? I mean, obviously, if there's no wrongdoing, there's no reason for you to be upset. Wouldn't you agree, Klaus? He turns and draws you into the conversation. He tips his head forward, in a way, so there's that little a glare of his eyes under his bushy eyebrows, and he puts a little bit of a sneer, twists his mustache up to one corner.
And we flash back to the mirror for a minute, and I kind of get a cocksure grin a little bit.
Yeah.
And I lean forward and I say, so let me get this straight, Prior Paul. Let me get this straight, Councilman. We have a man with a sick daughter, and a sick cousin, and a wounded son, and a wounded nephew. We have a man with a sick daughter, and a sick cousin, and a wounded nephew. And our priority as a community, as a town, as people, as friends, is not to comfort one another, is not to take care of one another, but is to violate our privacies, is to hunt the witches among us. Councilman, is that correct? Is that where this is going? Because that seems where it's going. So perhaps the day might be yours. But it seems like the war might be, and I gesture out, everyone else's. If we have lost what is inside, if we have lost our souls, what are we fighting for? Okay. And I'm right up on him now.
Oh, yeah.
Looming over him.
I want to hear a charming and convinced. The challenge is still 8 because it's still Paul, and that's what he is. Oh,
that's a 6. That's
a
9.
A 9. Okay, that's a win there. All right. Paul grumbles at you. How dare you spit my words back at me? Winberg, I want you to know that I hold you accountable for this man's actions. If I find that he's done something illicit or untoward, I will come for you first. See to your friends and family, make sure they are healthy and safe. And likewise with you, Winberg.
Of course. And likewise, Councilman. Have a wonderful afternoon.
He turns and storms away, and his lackeys follow after him. It's been a while since they've invited you to come by their little office in the corner of the city hall, but I wonder why. All right, you are thanked profusely by Gene, who grabs his trunk and throws it in the back of a horse-drawn cart.
I shake his hand and I pull him close, and I say, once again, it's never been about you.
Okay, and he rumbles down the hill and out of town. So let's see. That was 6. So we'll tick that off the clock. That's protecting Gene from Paul. And since that scene involved Gene, you got 2 joy added to that. So you're doing pretty well, actually. Your joy is moving up there. If you can actually fill the meter, you can knock off that pain, and that'll be gone. So we're doing a good job. We'll be able to go into our next big scenes with a lot of ammunition, so to speak. All right. So what else can we do?
I guess we have to settle in Maria.
Yeah, I guess it's true. We have to get Maria settled in and get her all taken care of.
I think I'm going to manage that myself.
Sure.
Because, age is not an obstacle, so I'm like carrying bags and moving furniture and doing all of that stuff myself. Because like, Hannah, you're going to be doing so much over the next few weeks. Let me remodel the apartment a little bit. Let me take care of this because, frankly, this is what I'm good at.
Yeah.
It is my job, after all.
Gotcha. Okay. Setting things up and getting those things organized is largely okay, but you're still trying to do a little bit to try and balance how to take care of Maria. I mean, when Hannah's there, it seems that she sort of bustles in a lot of the time to deal with Maria. What's Klaus's background like? Has he been married? Has he had kids? We've never really touched on that.
I don't think he has. I think he's been single and loving it for a long time, and I think that this is the first time that he has fallen in love with someone. I think this is the first time that he's actually, like, felt that. And he's sort of settling into the role of family man more than he anticipated that he would.
Okay. Well, let's have fun with that.
Yeah.
So, one night, a couple of, it's a week into Jean's self-imposed exile. Maria's had kind of a bad day. She's had some coughing fits. You've had to give her medicine a couple of times that day. And that night, after you come back from the warehouse, Hannah has to go excuse herself to do some shopping. Apparently they finally got some fresh meat in the butcher shop, and so she'd rather run down there while she can get some of it instead of relying on more tins of this, ground up pork that the government is allowing people to buy for credits or something like that as part of the rationing program. So she's going to go get beef while beef is in town. But as she runs out to do that, Maria starts coughing again loudly. So you go in to give her medicine, and you realize that she's really just sobbing. The coughing is coming in between sobs.
I sit down next to her and I say, "What's wrong? Talk to me."
I know what's going on with my dad, okay? And I'm scared that he's gonna get caught and hung. I saw that newspaper article. That was an article you were trying to keep away from her, but apparently she grabbed this, she saw a newspaper that Hannah had left on a kitchen table about a black marketeer who was, hung in the Capitol, and how everyone came out to see that, because it was a great little demonstration of Moravian justice. And I know that he's been doing those things, and I just keep thinking he's gonna end up like that man in the newspaper, and I just can't stop thinking it. He's gonna die because I'm sick.
And I smile and I say, Do you know what your father has that man didn't?
No.
He's got me. And I smile and I puff my chest up a little bit and I say, I give you my word, Maria. And this will probably be an empathize. And I say, I give you my word.
Yeah.
As long as I am around, your father and you and everyone else in this town is safe. Idle will not be the kind of town that hangs people.
You really can do that? I mean,
I can do a lot of things. I can do a lot of wonderful things.
Well, let's see. You're trying to convince her, but you're doing it you're empathizing.
Yeah.
You're empathizing with her, so that's good. The challenge for her is we're going to make it a 7. She's also a pretty, straightforward person, but again, everyone's angry and crazy and all that sort of thing, and that's what's got her stirred up. So we're dealing with a 7, yeah. Yep. So we're looking at charming and empathize.
That's a 6. That's an 8.
Ooh, an 8. Okay, good.
She's got to clear away a point of pain.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you can, because that was, it's also related to Gene, because he was involved in this, so go ahead and fill it up. In fact, if you want to, you can up your bond with Gene.
I will do that.
Decide,
do exactly that.
You can sort of add Gene, you can add Maria to the end there. Gene Wassler, Maria, sort of the Wassler family now, or you are in very close with them and their dealings at this point. Good, and that was, let's see.
6.
Maria. So, she buys it after a while. She settles down and relaxes and, and stops coughing, and you don't actually have to give her another dose of the medicine once she settles in and sort of, and drifts off. But yeah, she feels comforted with what you've said about, what you can do to try and keep him safe and keep the town safe. When Hannah comes back, she tells you about how great it is. She's got this, this package, and she actually got, some beef ribs. So she's going to be cooking that tomorrow, and it'll be delicious. You'll have a feast. It'll be wonderful. All right. We've got 4 points left on the war clock. If you have any other scenes you want to try and bring out,
I don't, but I think I'm going to generally keep working on charming. Keep training charming as best I can, and just be friendly around, taking Gene's words to heart, that I've done a lot for the community, and that I am a good person. I am a good person.
Okay.
A good person.
Good person. All right. So let's, that's 3 dice.
All right.
And you'll get to tick the first box under the 3.
That's a 5.
That's a 5, which runs down the thing. So we're training.
So I spend the last few days before Boza comes by just like picking people up, smiling, being the sort of playing the goof a little bit. I realize I have a reputation for being a little clumsy. I have a reputation for being a little bit of an oaf. Maybe I'll lean into that.
Okay.
Maybe that's who I am now. Maybe that's who I've always been.
All right. Well, Berza seems to notice this. The next time you see him, like you're coming out of your shift and he just sort of walks up and falls into step beside you. I mean, he's in town, he's around, but he sort of tries to keep his distance so it's not too obvious. You've taken on a lot more of an avuncular air, Vinberg, I have to say. Past few weeks have been good for you.
They have been.
Well, I mean, if you've seen the newspapers, you know that things elsewhere are going okay. I mean, Astoria is practically on the ropes after HAMMERBLOW. They're reaching the capital and starting to do some damage there. Trouble, of course, is the Hansens are still in the mountain ranges, and that's where we are now. That's where you're going next. There are emplacements in the mountains that need to be cleared. There are Hansens that need to be turned back before they can advance further. It's time for your next operation.
And I think he kind of like breathes deep. He looks around and he says, "Okay, let's do it."
After you, he opens the door to the car.
And he climbs in, and that's game.
There we are.
Another excellent installment. I really like the change. I really enjoy the changes.
Good.
They feel really the buff changes feel a lot more. I felt a lot more confident in like what they were doing and the actual impact of them. And it gave some interesting touches to the dice rolls where I was just pushing through them, especially this late in the campaign. Like it really creates an interesting conundrum of, do I go for the debuff or am I better suited to just punching through? Which is interesting because now I'm more machine now, so I'm facing that question of, is it better to just trust the machine that will tear everything apart?
No, it's true.
So it feeds into that central question very well.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I do really enjoy the new buff system because of it. I think it sped the combat up. I mean, each of those debuffs was another roll. We've spent twice as long in that scene.
We did a lot of cool combat.
Exactly. We covered a lot of fun things with that. And and I think at this stage of the game, I mean, we're kind of at that point where what you're balancing is the machine going to go up? Is the rage going to... is the pain gonna the pain you've got a pretty good control over, but it's just the sense of, is the rage, is the machine too powerful now? Do you have to, because you have to keep reining it in at this stage of the game, Yeah,
it's that I'm spending my joy to dial it back and not to spend it forward.
Yeah, and I'm really happy with like all the relationships growing in town. I love Jean. I love Hannah. These are great people.
I love all of these. These characters are all very close to me. Russell, thank you so much for coming on Party of One. As always, this is a delight. This is one of my favorite ongoing things.
Sure, I will probably have to wind it up soon. I think
we're closing in.
Yeah.
But that just means that the game is. That just means our campaign is almost done, which is even more exciting.
That's true, because it means I have to actually finish the book and release it. So there's all this playtesting done. I gotta go forward.
Whole campaign. So real quick, where can people find you online?
Let's see. Well, the best places to try and track me down, I have my website, robotclaw.info, where you can read about my previous game, Tears of a Machine, and when I actually post up stuff about Project Wingspan, that's where it'll be. On Twitter, I am at robotclaw, if you want to try and find me there. Not on there as frequently as I used to be, but I'm around. So, cool. You'll find me.
Rad. Well, I am going to throw it over to me in the future so that he can wrap up with the show. Take it, future me.
Thanks, Past Me, and thanks again to Russell for coming onto the show. As always, be sure to check out robotclaw.info for updates on all of Russell's work, and follow Russell on Twitter at robotclaw. Then while you're on Twitter, you can follow us at Party of One Pod, like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/partyofonepodcast, and join our Discord community at bit.ly/partyofonediscord. If you want to further support the show, you consider backing our Patreon at patreon.com/partyofonepodcast. Patreon backers get access to bonus material, interviews, and mini podcasts, and Patreon dollars help pay for hosting fees, equipment costs, and convention appearances. You can also leave us a nice iTunes review, a social media shout-out, or a word-of-mouth recommendation. All of those things help new people find the show, which helps us do bigger, better, and cooler things. If you want to hear more from me, consider checking out All My Fantasy Children, the character creation, storytelling, and world-building podcast in which Eric Atano Saez and I take your listener prompts and spin them into beautiful, thriving, vibrant fantasy characters. You can find that at allmyfantasychildren.com. Party of One is produced and edited by Jeff Stormer and Jen Frank. All music for the show comes from the song Infinite Lives by Mega Ran featuring the D&D Sluggers. If you'd like to inquire about advertising rates coming onto the show, or you just want to share with me your year-end top 10 lists, you can email me at partyofonepodcast@gmail.com. Well, that's it for me. Until next time, thank you so much for listening. Remember to fight the forces of fascism every single day. Remember that self-love and self-care are radical and defiant acts of resistance. And as always, party on, everybody.